Здравствуйте, уважаемые господа. Сегодня у нас необычный эфир. Сегодня у нас в гостях американский предприниматель Тони Хейес, или Тони Хейес, как его можно называть. И он человек, который с 93-го года делает бизнес в России, и сейчас имеет бизнес только в России, ни за границей ничего не делает, и при этом не умеет говорить по-русски до сих пор. Уже 18 лет работая в России. Поэтому мы будем сегодня разговаривать по-английски. Чуть попозже Олег Тиньков объяснит, почему это надо делать.
Все очень просто. Русский очень сложный язык, а английский очень легкий язык. И я считаю, передача посвящена будущим предпринимателям, и поэтому я считаю, что неотъемлемая часть настоящего предпринимателя – это умение говорить, а уж тем более понимать по-английски. Говорить ладно, но понимать это очень просто. Поэтому тот, кто не поймет сегодняшнюю передачу, это его проблемы. Итак, Тони Хейес. Прошу любить и жаловать, my old friend. Tony, first question is from me. Could you please tell about yourself? Could you please introduce yourself? Why did you born? How did you born? And where did you born? Etc.
Well, I was born in New York City.
Okay.
1958 because my parents' wishes.
Sounds sexy.
Sound probably sexy in 1958, yes. I grew up
By
in
the
New
way,
York City.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Most of the people criticize me because I'm interrupting, but sometimes I have to. I truly believe...
It's nothing new.
Nothing new. Yes, I know Tony for a long time, and he knows there's nothing new when Oleg Tиньков is interrupting, so shut up. And I truly believe that end of 50s and beginning of 60s is the best epoch of the all times, starting from Greek empires, because it was really time when we've got Marilyn Monroe and Lisa Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong and US and all of the people of the world, and especially US, they were so happy about the times, and they look very much in the future with such a prospect. It was kind of different times. I think a lot of joy and a lot of future there. When you see it now, you have terrorists, bad times, euro is crashing, and the best epoch was end of 50s, beginning of 60s.
Well, what happened in the end of the 50s in the United States and throughout the 60s is two things. The second caused by the first. So the baby boomers that were born after World War II came of age and were having children. And because there were so many people having children at one time, they created a second baby boom, which was huge. And those children were born from 1955 until probably 1963 or so. In this range, maybe 1951 through 1961. You had a tremendous amount of population growth in the United States. And this led to a huge generation in music and in political thinking and in political activity, coming both from the UK and the United States. So it was a very interesting time to grow up in the United States. Even though I was in the early 60s, only about 3 years old, I was exposed to an awful lot of change in the world,
Yeah, especially
starting with the Beatles.
Why did you start your own business versus just to go to work to some other guys, to big company?
You know, I've always worked from when I was really young. So when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, I would go door to door and sell things. I would start businesses at our dacha, our country house in Connecticut. I would mow lawns, I would paint houses, I would wash windows. I always wanted to, for some reason, earn money. So it was natural for me. I did take a job, by the way. I waited tables, I worked on a fishing boat for a year just to earn money and have some discipline. And
How did you spend this money?
I saved the money and I bought small neon signs, and I would collect the neon signs in my house, then I would rent the neon signs for production companies for use in TV commercials and major motion pictures.
What
and
kind
when
of
I
signs?
had too many neon signs, and
It's like
anything
on
from
air?
Eat here, hotel, motel, restaurant, those were all very popular.
Pink one.
And I actually stepped on a sign in my house and cut my foot and realized that I should take a storefront. And that's how I left from the apartment and ended up in a storefront. And that became a more serious business. I started my own business really because I didn't want to wear a suit, ever. And I wanted to get up and go to the beach whenever I felt like it and not have to ask my boss. As it turned out, I do have to wear a suit, and I never go to the beach.
Now tell your transition from being American entrepreneur, being Soviet, not already Russian entrepreneur actually.
It wasn't Soviet. When I came, it was 1993.
So it was Russia.
And things were changing very, very rapidly. I had a neon sign shop, as I said, in Soho, New York, and I made a neon sign for someone who told me I did not have to come to Russia. All I had to do was make the sign and put the sign downstairs. At that stage, I had not traveled very much, and I had a list of places I wanted to visit. And at that time, and excuse me, but Russia was not high on the list of places I wanted to visit. Although I was fascinated by Russia, and I was fascinated by everything going on here, I was young, and I wanted to go to the Caribbean, and I wanted to go to Paris, and I wanted to go to places like this. So after promising that I didn't have to come to Russia, they came, they took the sign, and some 6 months later, they called me, and they said, "We don't know how to install the sign. You must come and install the sign." So after many phone calls, I finally agreed. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and it wasn't violent, it was financial. So the financial offer was good enough for me to say, okay, I leave my business in New York, I'll come for 5 days, install the sign and go back. Because in New York, the sign would have taken 2 days. So I said, 5 days, maybe something goes wrong, we can fix it.
Who was your partner
In New York?
in Moscow?
The Trinity Group. But at that stage, I was by myself.
We
So I
come
came
into
here
the-
to put on the sign for the Cherry Casino on Metelitsa on Novy Arbat.
It was for casino. Metelitsa and Novy Arbat, okay. At Novy Arbat, okay.
Thank you. So I arrived to install the sign. It was the May holidays. Nobody was working. I was here for 6 or 7 days before,
Like right now.
like now, it would be like arriving on Saturday to do a job. But in 1993, the country completely shut down. Now it continues to work, it just slows down. 93, it stopped. In any case, after a week, the workers did show up. The first day we had a meeting, decided what we were going to do, and everybody left. The second day we met in the same place, we had another meeting, everybody agreed on what they were supposed to do, and everybody left. That went on exactly like that for a week. So now I'm in Russia for 2 weeks, and we
Nothing.
haven't done anything. So I finally said, look, I have to go back to New York, nothing's going on, and I was assured that the workers would start to work and things would start to happen. Somewhere around the halfway through the third week, we did start to work, and the sign went up actually very slowly, but it did go up without any problems, except one of the last neon lamps to be installed broke during the installation. So we had to fix it. And I brought the parts and all the materials that I could fix it, and I know enough about fixing neon that I could fix it. We had to find a neon sign shop, which we found in Arkon, the state neon sign factory, which was up in the north of Moscow at the time. And we visited this, what I thought was a regular neon sign shop. And it was by far the largest neon sign shop that I had ever imagined existing. It was a full city block, and it was a vertical factory, and it was huge, and they had no work. So everybody was very excited to fix my tube. We fixed the tube, and then we had a couple of meetings with Arkon because they were looking for Western investment and Western partners. And we started to have some negotiations, and that brought me to the Trinity Group, and I asked them to be my partner and start a business in Russia.
David Ikebashvili.
Yes.
Yeah, by the way, he was here. David was one of our guests.
Really?
Yeah, maybe back then,
3 months ago.
3 months ago. Yeah, he was right here.
I
Same
hope he
seat.
said something good about me.
He actually mentioned, yes, he did, about
excellent.
Trinity Neon. So you become the biggest in Russia neon sign company or biggest outdoor.
No, it depends on how you look at it. If you include billboards, we're a very small company.
Mm-hmm.
If you narrow that down and include only neon signs, which was kind of a niche part of the business, we were certainly the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2005, we sold Trinity Neon to News Corp, which is the company owned by Murdoch.
How much did they pay you?
They paid us very well.
So you sold in 2005, and what then?
I then joined a company called Imedia Holding, which is an advertising agency. It's a Russian company. And I came in and got involved in a number of things, and one of the things I got involved in was these television screen advertising inside the shopping centers and inside the supermarkets. And the contract had a lot of problems, and I was asked to solve the problems.
You become a partner of that company?
I did.
Okay.
Tony is the founder of the famous pub in Moscow called Hungry Duck. Tell us, Tony, about this experience.
Is it true?
It is true. You didn't know?
No.
I'm sorry.
You never invited me.
Well, I had to sell the company when I had children and get married because it just wasn't. It didn't. It's a
Fit
It didn't fit. Thank you.
into your criteria.
I wanted to open a restaurant for many years, and it seemed like a logical thing to do in Russia because there really weren't very many restaurants in the early to mid-90s, and the restaurants that were there really weren't very good. So we had the idea to build a steakhouse, and we found this location near Kuznetsky Most, and we built this beautiful bar. We imported the bar top from Finland, and we opened it as a restaurant. And because of its location and because of some other things and some misunderstandings with partners and other things which I really would rather not talk about, the business wasn't doing that well after its initial success. And slowly it became a nightclub. And eventually it was no longer a restaurant at all, it was only a nightclub. And I think it's fair to say the rest is history. So it was a great project to be involved in, and it was a great project to leave.
It was famous at that time, huh?
It was pretty famous. Infamous, I think is the word.
when it was closed?
I think, I'm not even sure if it ever did close. It may still be running, I have no idea.
Your company, Retail Profile, is making business in 12 regions of Russia.
12 cities.
12 cities of Russia. And what is the best cities for business?
Well, you know, when I worked with Trinity in the old days, in the 90s, they always said, first you work and you get Moscow, and then it opens opportunities to move across Russia. Mm-hmm. That's not really true. Knowing how to do business in Russia, and in Moscow, does not give you the tools you need to do business in Nizhny Novgorod, or in Rostov, or in Samara. Each of these cities are so far away from one another that they have their own ways of working. They may be similar, but it's not a ticket into, if you have Moscow, it's not a ticket that you can go in. Yekaterinburg has proved to be a very, very good city, very strong. St. Petersburg is obviously the second capital. Some people say the first capital. But for us, we do as well in Yekaterinburg as we do in St. Petersburg, and sometimes better. Novosibirsk is a very strong city. Kazan is coming up strong all the time, especially now with the games coming. I think Krasnodar is going to grow very, very quickly. It's got super fertile land. There's a lot of activity and a lot of investment going in there. So anywhere there's investment going in, it's good for us because that means people have jobs and people are making money. And Russians, unlike Westerners, I don't know about Easterners, but unlike Westerners, they spend their money. They have the largest percentage of disposable income in the world, I think.
Where do you think the crisis hits the most? In the US or here in Russia?
It hit, well, see, most of my experience in Russia is Moscow, and Moscow is certainly not Russia. And
so there was no crisis in Moscow?
No, there was a crisis in Moscow, but it certainly didn't hit Moscow the way it hit.
For about 2 weeks it was a crisis.
Well, outside of Moscow, in the suburbs or in the countryside, people were devastated by the crisis.
Because I haven't gone to US for many years now, and some people are saying that it's terrible crisis in US. Would you confirm, or what's the situation?
It was pretty terrible in the U.S. Unemployment, I don't know the exact figures, but it was very high. In the Midwest, where you have the automobile industry, was crippled, and General Motors filed for bankruptcy, Chrysler, and they all had significant losses of jobs.
Las Vegas has less now.
People couldn't pay their mortgages, and it started this snowball that just nobody, a year and a half ago, nobody really knew how to stop. I think that that the measures that the government took,
Do you think it's solved for now, or just for now?
I think it's already hit the bottom and it's coming up. Solved? For some people, it'll never be solved. People lost their homes, they lost their jobs, they lost everything they worked for in their entire life, just taken back by the banks.
Тони.
Sorry.
Greedy banks.
By the greedy banks.
The biggest difference to me between foreign entrepreneurs and Russians is the two things. First, lack of idea of win-win situation. So, Russian entrepreneurs tend to grab anything to yourself and they don't care about the partner. That's the first problem of the Russian entrepreneurs, to me, versus foreigners. And the second, which probably would be more significant, is that Russian entrepreneurs are short-term thinkers versus US entrepreneurs. I think now it's changing, but mostly Russian, they think of 1 to 3 years time horizon, when US people would think 5 to 10 years horizon time, right?
But the question would be, why would that be? I mean,
why would it be?
The lessons are pretty clear that what's yours here isn't always yours. Somebody can come and take it away.
Well, about 20 years is nobody. I mean, even oligarchs, which got their property quite gray way.
I wouldn't know about that, but
they still own the property, right?
They own their property and they could lose it. It's happened.
Do you think they still could?
I think they still could. I think there are rules. I think they're clear. And I think if you don't work within those rules and boundaries, that the state can come and take anything away.
Well, and in US, do you think it is the case?
I think the legal and justice system in the US works more fairly for the people than the system here.
We'll see now Goldman Sachs case.
There are exceptions. I think that there are exceptions, you're right. And we will see.
Okay, but that's kind of...
but look at Enron, all the top people are in jail.
This you bounce on my short-term thinking, but what about win-win situation?
Well, there's always...
Why would Russian...
There's always a problem for us.
Think that they want to get more than the partner?
There's always a problem with us in our business now is when we're hiring people that we don't want people who come in at the beginning to feel like they've worked and they've built the company and it's theirs. So it's part of our interview system. When we're interviewing candidates to work with us, we tell the story because there are many examples of people working in a company when it starts up. They didn't put money in, but they did a lot of the work to get the company to the next level. And there's something that happens here where people believe that they own the company, or the company is there. Not that they own it, but they have the right to own the company because they made it. One way I work on that problem is I work in my companies. I'm not sitting on an island somewhere and having somebody build a company and just invest money and taking money out.
But it's also the way to do it. It's capitalism.
It is. But Russia is very young in this capitalism. 20 years is really nothing. So I think that we're going to see a lot of changes.
The main idea of this show, obviously, to show young guys, because on the internet, mostly young Russian generation, mostly from the regions, to show them that there are lots of possibilities to start their own business. There are still lots of possibilities despite we are not in 1993, to do some service and other things. And we encourage them to become an entrepreneur, and because we truly believe, me and Oleg, probably only in this country, that more entrepreneurs are out there, a better life for everybody, and the country is developing faster and better. Would you comment on that? Or what could you suggest?
I think it's absolutely true. I think Russians travel more than they ever did. They see things, they have ideas, and they bring them home and they start them. So my new business, Retail Profile, it's a brand new concept for Russia. It's never been done in Russia. We've had a huge success despite the crisis. And the people that are selling things on our carts are selling things that have never been sold in Russia. Mm-hmm. So you travel, you see a good idea, you bring it home and you go for it. And the thing that makes great entrepreneurs is having the guts to go for it. It's not everybody's, fits into the box of being able to do that. But I want to answer one other question you asked me before. Do I have any regrets? And I really don't, aside from not learning how to speak Russian, which there's no excuse for, so I won't make any. But I met my wife here, Tatiana.
Yeah, I would like to ask about your family. Go ahead. How old?
Our son Pavel is now 20. He's in university in Barcelona. We have a daughter, Jessica, 12, is now in 7th grade.
She's 12 already?
She's 12
Oh
already.
my God.
And we just had a son,
Paul is 12
11 months ago, Luke Anthony, named partially after me.
Congratulations
Thank you.
online.
And he's super. And having a baby in the family again after, Jessie hasn't been a baby in 10 years.
Yeah.
12 years. She was a baby, and
Yeah.
it just gives you so much more interest and excitement. It makes me
motivation.
feel younger and motivation, and kids are just great. So we'll probably have another one. So
It's a good idea.
had I not come here, I would not have met Tatiana, and we would not have made this super family.
What would be the main difference between Russian woman and any other woman? Because I feel there is a real, for foreigners, when they met Russian woman, there is really kind of conspiracy. There is something, beyond. What would it be? What is the difference between Russian woman and any other woman?
Russian women, generally speaking,
Go ahead, Tony. Don't forget, it's called Business-Secrets with Oleg Tinьков.
proud to be women.
Okay.
They're proud to be sexy. They want to be sexy. They want to be attractive.
Heels.
They want to be smart. They want to be independent. They want to be strong. And most Russian women I know really fit that bill. They're all of those things. They like wearing high heel shoes because they know it makes their leg look great and everything above. There was no feminist movement here, and there never would be, because Russian women don't need a feminist movement. They do work. You come into our office, I know you think it's sexist, but we only hire women so far. We find them to be great workers. We find them to be incredibly dedicated and focused and smart and committed to the business. Really dependable. Russian women, in my opinion, and for me, are, and I hope this doesn't get back to my family, my sister-in-laws, but they're super. They're fantastic. And my wife is one of them. She's great.
Could you give an advice for the young man who is living in Nizhny Novgorod now?
Make a statement for young, potential Russian 18 to 20-year-old entrepreneur. What would you tell him?
In my experience, anywhere in the world, if you want to work, you can work. If you have a great idea, if you can't do it on a large scale, you can do it on a small scale. And most great things in this world have come from small ideas, from small people, and have grown into big ideas and big businesses. If you're young in today's world, you have so much opportunity. There's really not an excuse, period.
Thank you very much. Super, Tony. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad I invite you here.
Me too. And I'm sorry I
haven't
couldn't
seen
make
you
it
for
last
ages,
time,
but no, it's excellent.